Words stirred something inside you. It's because deep down you already know they're true. You've carried burdens no one saw, endured battles no one celebrated, and walked through fires no one witnessed. And yet, you kept going. You've come too far, not to collapse, not to quit, but to rise higher. This isn't the breaking of your strength. It's the unveiling of it. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of your breakthrough. What you're about to hear isn't just motivation. It's a mirror. And when you finally see the warrior you were always meant to be, you'll never again shrink back into the shadows of who you used to be. Stay with me, because what's coming next might just be the moment your entire life begins to shift. What if today is the day everything changes? Not tomorrow, not years from now, but today. What if this very moment, as you breathe, listen, and think, the sky splits open, the noise of this world fades, and everything you've ever known is interrupted by something greater than you ever imagined? That thought doesn't just stir the mind, it shakes the soul. Because deep down, no matter how busy, numb, or distracted we get, there's a voice inside that whispers, "You were made for something more," and it could begin at any moment. This isn't about fear. It's about facing what most people avoid, the question of eternity, and the possibility that the rapture, the divine moment of reunion, might not be centuries away. It could be now. You've felt it, haven't you? That stirring in your chest when the world feels just a little too loud, a little too fast, a little too broken. That inner pull that says life wasn't meant to be lived in chaos but in clarity. And yet we wait. We wait to change, to forgive, to love, to surrender. We wait for better timing, for fewer distractions, for more certainty. But what if time itself is the very thing we're running out of? Had if the point isn't to wait for a warning, but to become the kind of person who's always ready. There's something powerful that happens when you stop living like you have forever and start living like today matters more than you thought. This isn't about predicting the exact hour or date. It's about awakening to the possibility that the rapture isn't some distant concept tucked away in Scripture. It's an urgent call for alignment, for transformation, for priority. Because, whether it happens today or in your lifetime or after, the message remains the same. Don't sleep through your own soul's preparation. Don't spend one more day numbing what should be awakened, delaying what should be surrendered, or ignoring what should be embraced. Life was never meant to be lived on autopilot. You were meant to burn with purpose, not drift through routine. And the question isn't whether you'll know when the rapture comes. The question is, will your life say you were ready? Stay with this message, because what you'll discover isn't about fear of missing something. It's about finding everything. A life lived ready is a life lived with courage, clarity, and meaning. Every second becomes sacred. Every choice becomes intentional. And every heartbeat reminds you that you are not lost in the noise of the world. You are part of a bigger story. You are being called higher, deeper, closer to what you were created for. So before you scroll, before you forget, before you tell yourself there's still time, ask again, what if today is the day everything changes? Because the moment you stop waiting and start preparing, your entire life begins to shift. This is the wake-up call your soul has been waiting for. The moment you begin to believe it could happen today, everything changes. Your thoughts sharpen, your excuses crumble. The distractions that once ruled your day begin to feel small and meaningless. Because when you live like something eternal could interrupt the temporary at any moment, you stop waiting to become the person you were always meant to be. You start being that person. You stop living as if tomorrow is promised, and start acting like today is the only time you truly own. And that shift, that holy urgency, doesn't bring panic. It brings power. It wakes you up from the slow sleep of routine and reminds you that your life was never supposed to blend in with the noise. You were meant to stand out. You were meant to be ready. The human mind is built to seek comfort, repetition, and delay. We tell ourselves we'll get serious later, we'll fix it next month, will change when things calm down. But the truth is, things rarely calm down. And the deeper truth is, every delay dulls your spirit. Every delay tells your soul that preparation can wait. But what if the most dangerous lie you've believed is that you have more time than you actually do? Imminency breaks that illusion. It confronts the part of you that's been asleep. It looks you in the eye and says, "You're not waiting on anything, you've already been called." This moment right here, it's not a pause, it's a divine push. A reminder that eternity doesn't start later, it presses into your present now. When you live like the rapture could happen today, you begin to choose differently. You forgive faster. You love more boldly. You let go of bitterness that's poisoned your peace. You stop building walls that isolate and start building bridges that heal. Because suddenly your pride doesn't seem so important. Your grudges don't feel worth carrying. Your fears don't deserve that much space in your heart. You realize that readiness isn't about knowing every detail. It's about aligning your soul with what truly matters. And what matters most isn't what you've done wrong in the past. What matters is whether you're willing to respond right now. This isn't about pressure, it's about presence. It's about finally feeling the weight of now, not as a burden, but as a blessing. You still have time, you're still breathing, you still have the chance to live awake, aware, and aligned, and that chance is more than a moment, it's a miracle. So don't let it pass. Because the greatest tragedy isn't missing the rapture, it's missing your reason for living before it even comes. Don't waste another breath on what drains you. You're being called higher. You're being pulled into purpose. And if you'll lean in, if you'll answer that inner tug, you'll find a strength you forgot you had, a clarity you didn't know you needed, and a courage that only rises when you decide that today truly matters. When your soul truly understands that today could be the moment everything shifts, you stop chasing the things that never mattered. The weight of the eternal makes the temporary feel lighter. The arguments, the possessions, the comparisons, they lose their grip on your mind, because you're no longer living for applause, approval, or attention. You're living for alignment. You're living for the whisper that says, "Well done." And that whisper doesn't come from this world. It comes from a place higher, deeper, and infinitely more real than anything you can touch. That's why this message matters. It isn't about adding pressure to your day. It's about restoring the direction of your life. You were never meant to be driven by noise. You were meant to be led by truth. There is a peace that comes from readiness, a calmness that no chaos can shake. When you've aligned your life with what truly matters, you stop fearing what might happen and start preparing for what will happen. And that preparation, that intentional focus, is the greatest gift you can give your future. Because when the moment comes, whether today, tomorrow, or years from now, you won't be scrambling. You won't be wishing you had started sooner. You'll be standing with quiet confidence, knowing you lived like it could happen at any moment, because you understood what was truly at stake. And that understanding doesn't come from fear. It comes from love. Love for God, love for people, love for truth. And that love awakens a fire that no darkness can extinguish. If today was your last chance to speak truth, would you stay silent? If today was your last opportunity to forgive, would you still hold that grudge? If today was the final time your heart would beat on this side of eternity, would you keep pretending you have forever? These aren't dramatic questions, they're invitations. Not to panic, but to prioritize. You've been given today, and if you treat it like the treasure it is, you'll live it with depth, urgency, and purpose. You'll walk away from the shallow things that steal your time and run toward the calling that feeds your soul. You'll stop asking if the world is ready for change and start asking if you are ready to become that change. You are not here by accident. This moment was meant to find you, not to scare you, but to remind you. Life is not about waiting for something to happen. It's about becoming someone who's ready when it does. And readiness doesn't come from knowing every answer. It comes from surrendering every excuse, from rising every day with a heart that says, "Even if it's today, I will not be ashamed." You have that power. You have that choice. And if you embrace it, your life won't just prepare for the rapture. It will become a reflection of the one who promised it. Let this be the day you choose to live like you believe it. Let this be the day you finally wake up. There is nothing more dangerous than a heart that keeps waiting for a better time. And because waiting becomes a habit, and habits become identity. The longer you wait to rise, the harder it becomes to remember why you were called to rise in the first place. You don't drift into readiness. You decide into it. You make the conscious choice to stop living asleep, to stop numbing the parts of you that were meant to feel deeply. You stop blaming time and start redeeming it. That's the difference between a life that impacts eternity and a life that disappears into the background. You were never meant to be a background character in your own story. You were meant to be the one who wakes up, steps forward, and lives ready no matter what. The mind will always try to convince you that later is safer, that you need more clarity, more comfort, more certainty before you act. But the soul knows better. The soul knows that movement brings clarity, that surrender brings peace, that obedience brings power. And when you choose to stop waiting, even before you feel ready, something sacred unlocks inside you. That resistance you've carried, the heaviness, the fear, the shame, it begins to lose its grip. Not because the world changes, but because you do. You stop needing guarantees and start building conviction. You stop asking, what if it's not time? And start living like it already is. And maybe that's what's been missing. Not more knowledge, but more urgency. Not another sign, but a deeper sensitivity. That's what imminency does to a person. It breaks the illusion that you can keep postponing your purpose. It rips the comfort off the lie that there will always be more time. It replaces your hesitation with hunger. Hunger to grow, hunger to give, hunger to become the kind of person who doesn't just believe in truth, but lives it out loud. That's what readiness really looks like. It's not performance, it's posture, a heart bowed in surrender, a life lifted in obedience. You've seen the distractions, you've felt the numbness, you've tasted the emptiness of delay, but now something inside you is stirring again. A whisper reminding you that you're not here to blend in, fit in, or fade out. You're here to stand firm, love deeply, and live like eternity could break through the clouds at any second, because one day it will. And whether that day is this one or another, the greatest tragedy would be arriving at that moment having never truly lived for it. So let today be the end of excuses. Let today be the day you stop rehearsing your purpose and finally walk in it. Because every second you spend awake is a second well spent. And every moment you choose readiness is a declaration that your soul is alive, your heart is open, and your life is no longer on hold. If your heart is still beating, it means your time isn't over, but it also means you don't have forever. That truth should not crush you, it should ignite you. Because the more you understand how fragile time is, the more sacred each moment becomes. You begin to feel every second as a gift, not a guarantee. You no longer sleepwalk through your days. You don't waste breath on bitterness. Don't spend hours on empty things. Don't keep putting off the one decision that could shift everything inside of you. You start to feel the weight of now, not because you fear the end, but because you honor what's been given. When you live with that kind of reverence, readiness isn't something you try to reach. It becomes who you are. The mind may beg you for more time. It will always look for loopholes, always try to delay conviction with distraction. But your soul already knows what the mind tries to avoid. You were never made to live in half measures. You weren't created to coast. There is a call stitched deep into your being to rise, to awaken, to prepare, not in fear of judgment, but in response to love. You are being drawn toward wholeness, not forced into fear. And when you finally stop resisting the urgency that's chasing you, everything begins to align. Suddenly, what once felt overwhelming becomes clear. You realize that the rapture isn't just a future event, it's a present reminder. A reminder that eternity isn't waiting for the right date. It's waiting for your attention. And attention is everything. What you give it to shapes who you become. If your attention is consumed by noise, you become confused. If it's fixed on comfort, you become complacent. But if you lift it higher, toward purpose, toward truth, toward the eternal, you start to live with clarity, courage, and conviction. Your steps become more intentional. Your relationships deepen. Your voice gains power, not because it's louder, but because it comes from a place that's rooted. That's what readiness creates. Not a frantic hustle to be good enough, but a steady strength that flows from knowing who you belong to and why you're still here. You don't have to be perfect to be prepared. You don't need every answer to live with direction. All you need is the willingness to stop delaying what you already know is true. You are here to live with your eyes open, your heart surrendered, and your soul awake. You are here to make decisions that echo into eternity, to leave nothing undone, to hold nothing back. That's what living in light of the rapture really means. It means choosing now over later. It means acting today instead of assuming tomorrow. It means being ready not just in belief, but in how you live, love, and lead, right here, right now, because you may not know the moment he comes, but you do know the moment you can choose to be ready, and that moment is this one. You can't afford to live asleep in a world that's shaking. You can't afford to be numb when everything around you is crying out for meaning. The signs are not just in the headlines or the chaos. They're in the silence of your own spirit that knows something is shifting. You feel it in moments you can't explain, when the weight of the world presses in and the distractions no longer satisfy. You sense that time is moving faster, that the world is growing colder, and that the soul can't survive on surface-level living anymore. Something deeper is being called forth. Something higher is asking for your attention. And if you ignore it, you don't just miss a sign, you miss the very transformation your heart is starving for. This isn't about fear. This is about clarity. It's about waking up from the slow sedation of convenience and realizing the urgency was never meant to scare you. It was meant to save you. It was meant to pull you out of delay, out of doubt, out of dead habits, and into a life that finally breathes again. Because when the soul aligns with truth, it doesn't retreat. It rises. And when you live like the world is not your home, but your assignment, you stop wasting energy on what's crumbling and start building what will last. You stop reacting to life and start responding with purpose. And that shift changes everything. There's a fire that comes when you start living ready. Not a fire of burnout, but of boldness. You begin to speak differently, love more fiercely, and carry a kind of peace that doesn't depend on comfort. Because you're no longer pretending that tomorrow is promised. You're no longer letting culture shape your character. You're letting eternity shape your priorities. That's what readiness really means. It's not knowing the timing of heaven, it's knowing the heartbeat of it. And when you walk in rhythm with that heartbeat, fear loses its grip, sham loses its weight, and apathy loses its seat at your table. So many are walking blind, following the crowd, living numb to the ache that tells them they were made for something more. Don't let that be your story. You were never meant to sleep through the signs or drown in distraction. You were meant to discern. You were meant to prepare. You were meant to lead, not with noise but with stillness, not with arrogance but with clarity. The world doesn't need another opinion. It needs an example. And readiness makes you that example. It makes your life a light. It makes your voice a warning wrapped in love. And most of all, it makes your heart unshakable in a world that keeps falling apart. Because no matter what happens, no matter when the trumpet sounds, you'll know you didn't waste your time hoping for signs. You became one. You lived alert. You lived available. You lived ready. There is a strength that rises in you when you stop living for comfort and start living for calling. When the goal is no longer survival, but surrender. Not to the world, not to pressure, but to truth. That kind of surrender doesn't make you weak. It awakens your soul. It removes the layers you've built to protect yourself from pain and replaces them with purpose. It silences the noise that tells you to blend in and replaces it with a voice that calls you to rise above. Because the more clearly you see what matters, the less time you waste on what doesn't. And when your life begins to align with that kind of clarity, you don't just survive, you begin to live fully, deeply, and with unshakable resolve. Every day you wake up is a day to train your soul, not for the approval of people, but for the presence of something eternal. And that kind of training doesn't happen by accident. It's a choice, a daily surrender of pride, of comfort, of distraction. It's choosing the path of depth over the path of ease. It's choosing to forgive when it's hard, to love when it costs, to speak truth even when your voice shakes. Because readiness isn't a feeling, it's a discipline. It's the small, unseen choices made in silence that prepare you for what's coming. You don't build spiritual strength by waiting for the moment. You build it by living like the moment already matters. There is no shortcut to becoming a soul that's anchored. You have to be willing to grow in the dark, to pray when no one sees, to press on when no one claps, to believe when everything says quit. That's what makes you different. That's what sets you apart. You don't need a platform to make an impact. You need purity. You don't need popularity to be powerful. You need consistency. You don't need to know the future to be ready for it. You need to live like the one who holds the future already has your yes. That yes is what makes the difference. That yes is what breaks the chains. That yes is what builds the kind of life that isn't shaken by the signs, but shines through them. The world will keep offering comfort in exchange for your calling. It will hand you distractions wrapped in convenience. It will try to convince you that settling is safety. But there is no safety in spiritual sleep. There is only the quiet fading of potential, and you were not made to fade. You were not made to sleep through your purpose. You were made to burn with truth, with love, with holy expectancy, the kind of fire that doesn't consume you but completes you, that doesn't exhaust you but ignites you. So if the sky split open today, would your life speak of surrender or stalling? You already know the answer. Don't waste another moment. Let your life say you trained for this. Let it say you lived ready. You don't have to be afraid of what's coming when your life is anchored in who you're becoming. Fear only has power when you're unprepared. But when your heart is aligned, when your spirit is awake and your soul is rooted in truth, fear has no place to grow. It dies in the presence of purpose. It shrinks in the shadow of surrender. Because when you stop asking, what if everything falls apart, and start declaring, even if it does, I will not, you walk into every day with a calm that cannot be shaken. That's what readiness gives you. Not just a plan, but peace. Not just awareness, but authority over the chaos that used to cripple you. You begin to live as one who's already overcome, not one still begging for reassurance. You were not created to tiptoe through life, terrified of disruption. You were created to carry something unshakable in a world that keeps trembling. And that kind of strength doesn't come from guessing the timeline of eternity. It comes from living as if it's always near. That mindset shifts your priorities. It clears your vision. You begin to see what's worth your time and what never deserved your energy in the first place. The grudges, the pride, the pressure to be someone you're not, all of it begins to fall away. You realize you don't have to perform for peace. You just have to align your life with what's true. That truth sets you free, not just from sin, but from the shallowness that once defined you. Readiness is more than watching the signs. It's about becoming one, a living example of what it means to be steady when the world is restless, a reflection of what it looks like to walk in faith, not fear, to choose discipline over delay and devotion over distraction. Because while others are waiting to see something happen, you're living like it already has. That's what separates the awakened from the asleep. One lives braced for disruption. The other lives moved by conviction, and conviction always leads to transformation. It doesn't make you louder, it makes you clearer. It doesn't make you better than others, it makes you honest with yourself. You don't have to be afraid of what's coming when your life is anchored in who you're becoming. Fear only has power when you're unprepared, but when your heart is aligned, when your spirit is awake, and your soul is rooted in truth, fear has no place to grow. It dies in the presence of purpose. It shrinks in the shadow of surrender. Because when you stop asking, what if everything falls apart, and start declaring, even if it does, I will not. You walk into every day with a calm that cannot be shaken. That's what readiness gives you. Not just a plan, but peace. Not just awareness, but authority over the chaos that used to cripple you. You begin to live as one who's already overcome, not one still begging for reassurance. You were not created to tiptoe through life, terrified of disruption. You were created to carry something unshakable in a world that keeps trembling. And that kind of strength doesn't come from guessing the timeline of eternity. It comes from living as if it's always near. That mindset shifts your priorities. It clears your vision. You begin to see what's worth your time and what never deserved your energy in the first place. The grudges, the pride, the pressure to be someone you're not, all of it begins to fall away. You realize you don't have to perform for peace. You just have to align your life with what's true. That truth sets you free, not just from sin, but from the shallowness that once defined you. Readiness is more than watching the signs. It's about becoming one, a living example of what it means to be steady when the world is restless, a reflection of what it looks like to walk in faith, not fear, to choose discipline over delay and devotion over distraction, because while others are waiting to see something happen, you're living like it already has. That's what separates the awakened from the asleep. One lives braced for disruption. The other lives moved by conviction, and conviction always leads to transformation. It doesn't make you louder, it makes you clearer. It doesn't make you better than others, it makes you honest with yourself. You don't need more signs to get ready. You need more surrender. More quiet moments of courage where you stop entertaining the lie that you have more time to waste. Because readiness isn't measured by how much you know. It's revealed by how you live. It's revealed by the peace in your posture, the purity in your actions, and the urgency in your love. That kind of life doesn't fear the unknown. It welcomes it. It walks into the unknown holding hands with heaven, unshaken by time, because it already chose eternity. So, if the trumpet sounded now, this very second, would your life echo yes? Not with words, but with alignment. Not with noise, but with stillness. That is the power of a life that's truly ready, and that power is already in you. You don't need another sign. You need to stop delaying what your heart already knows is right. The longer you wait, the heavier it feels. Not because you're weak, but because your spirit was never meant to carry hesitation. You were designed to move with clarity, to step with certainty, to act with boldness rooted in alignment. Every moment you pause out of fear is a moment your purpose remains locked inside you. And there's a price for delay. It's not just time, it's the dulling of your fire, the erosion of your courage, the slow death of conviction. That's why urgency isn't about pressure, it's about preservation. It's about protecting who you are from becoming who you never intended to be. When you stop ignoring what you were made for, you stop decaying in indecision. Somewhere inside you, there's a voice that refuses to stay silent. It's the part of you that knows this life is not just about comfort, success, or survival. It's about impact. It's about living in a way that shakes the dust off your soul and makes everything around you feel the weight of your presence. That voice doesn't beg for validation. It commands your attention. It challenges your excuses. It doesn't negotiate with doubt. It dismantles it. Because it's not speaking from your fear. It's speaking from your design. And when you finally listen to that voice, your life stops reacting and starts responding. You stop chasing approval and start walking in alignment. You stop clinging to what's safe and start surrendering to what's sacred. There's a reason you feel the tension. There's a reason the quiet moments feel louder than the noise. It's because your life is crying out for alignment, not with trends, not with titles, but with truth, with depth, with meaning. Everything you've been through, every setback you've endured, every delay you've faced, it wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to refine you, to bring you to this very point where the fire inside you burns hotter than the fear around you, where excuses start sounding like enemies and hesitation starts feeling like betrayal. Not because you're too hard on yourself, but because you're finally honest enough to admit you're made for more. You don't need permission to rise. You need the courage to stop shrinking. You need the grit to walk away from anything that numbs your purpose. The world is not waiting for a perfect version of you. It's waiting for a present one. The one who shows up even when it's hard. The one who doesn't fake strength but embodies it. The one who doesn't wait for the storm to pass, but becomes the storm. That power is already in you. That readiness is already forming. And when you stop looking outside for confirmation and start living from the truth inside, you become the signal this world needs. Not a whisper, not an echo, but a voice that cannot be ignored, a presence that can no longer be delayed, a life fully awakened. You don't need more time, you need more truth. And the truth is, every delay you defend is a barrier you build between the life you have and the life you were meant to lead. You keep waiting for clarity to arrive wrapped in comfort, but real clarity often comes wrapped in confrontation. The confrontation of your own limits, your own habits, your own silence. Growth doesn't whisper you forward, it breaks the shell you've been hiding in. It doesn't pamper your fear, it exposes it. And once it's exposed, you have a choice. Shrink back into the familiar prison of almost, or rise into the unshakable power of alignment. Nothing will ever feel enough if you keep living below what you were built for. No achievement will satisfy you if it cost you your voice. No success will be fulfilling if it came at the price of your authenticity. You are not here to decorate the world with quiet regret. You are here to disrupt the patterns that kept you small, to disturb the comfort zones that buried your spirit, to dismantle every lie that ever told you to play it safe. Playing it safe is not peace, it's quiet suffocation. You weren't made to tiptoe around your calling, you were made to stand firm in it. You were made to burn with conviction so bright that even your shadows retreat in respect. Stop waiting for the world to give you permission to be whole. The gate was never locked. You were just taught to wait outside, but not anymore. Not when the cost of staying the same has become heavier than the fear of changing. Not when the sound of your suppressed truth has grown louder than the praise of your performance. You can't fake wholeness. You can't pretend your way to peace. You can't decorate a cage and call it freedom. It doesn't matter how successful you look if you feel like a stranger in your own life. You weren't born to beg for moments, you were born to create them. You weren't designed to be a background character in your own existence. Everything inside you is built for movement, for progress, for impact. That's why stagnation feels like suffocation. That's why silence can sound so loud. It's your soul reminding you that you were made for more than routines that drain you and expectations that cage you. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be present. Present enough to stop pretending, present enough to face the discomfort that growth demands, and present enough to confront the compromises you've made to keep the peace outside while destroying the fire inside. The version of you that still hesitates is just a shadow of the one that's ready to rise. You are not confused, you are cautious. Not because you don't believe, but because you've been hurt when you tried. But you must stop letting the past interrupt your future. Stop giving old wounds permission to write new chapters. The pain was real, yes, but so is your power. So is your ability to rebuild, relearn, and reclaim. You don't owe your pain an explanation, but you owe your healing a decision. A decision to move forward, to breathe deeper, to live louder. You can't wait until you feel ready. You get ready by moving, you get strong by choosing, and you grow by stepping into the very space your fear told you to avoid. You will always feel tension right before transformation. That pressure you're carrying isn't weakness, it's potential trying to break through. The discomfort you feel isn't the sign to stop. It's the signal you're getting close to something real. Don't misinterpret friction as failure. Don't confuse fear with a dead end. Your breakthrough won't come when you feel your best. It will come when you choose to rise even while doubting, hurting, or trembling. The power isn't in never falling. It's in deciding that every fall will teach you how to rise differently, stronger, more aligned. Stop shrinking to fit environments that no longer match your capacity. Stop muting your voice to protect the comfort of those who never knew your storm. This is your permission to be unapologetic about your evolution. This is your moment to choose depth over approval, growth over validation, truth over tradition. Every time you honor your path, even in fear, you rewrite what's possible. You don't need signs when your soul is already speaking. You don't need permission when purpose is already pulling. The greatest shift happens not when the world sees your power, but when you finally stop hiding it from yourself. You've carried the weight of doubt long enough. Now it's time to carry the light of your own becoming. Don't wait for change, become it. Don't chase peace, embody it. Don't beg for breakthroughs, build them. Because you didn't come this far to pause, you came this far to break through, and now it's your time. There is a version of you that doesn't flinch at fear, a version that isn't exhausted by trying to prove, trying to please, trying to survive in a world that keeps shifting the goalposts. That version of you is already alive, buried beneath layers of doubt, delay, and distraction. Every time you silence your truth to avoid discomfort, you bury that version deeper. Every time you trade authenticity for acceptance, you feed the lie that you are not enough as you are. But you were never meant to be a reflection of other people's opinions. You were meant to be a revolution of your own truth. You're not chasing power, you are power. And it's time you stopped running from your own capacity to shift everything around you by simply standing fully in who you are. You don't need more time, you need more alignment. You don't need more chances, you need more courage. What's breaking you isn't your limits, it's your hesitation to test them. You've waited for clarity while burying your instincts. You've waited for signs while ignoring your soul's whispers. But purpose doesn't arrive fully formed. It reveals itself one courageous step at a time. And you won't unlock it by overthinking. You'll unlock it by obeying that quiet inner pull that keeps telling you there's more to become. Stop hoping to be rescued by something outside you and start realizing that what you've been waiting for is the permission to finally trust yourself. You have to stop seeing yourself as someone trying to survive and start seeing yourself as someone destined to lead. You don't need to dominate others. You need to dominate your own doubt, your own self-sabotage, your own narrative that says you're not ready. You are not a mistake in progress. You are a miracle in motion. There is nothing weak about starting over. There is nothing shameful about rebuilding. The only failure is in choosing to stay small because it feels safer than becoming honest about your capacity. The pain you've carried has trained you, not destroyed you. The losses didn't shrink your worth. They refined it. They reminded you of what really matters and what was never yours to begin with. So breathe deeper, stand taller, choose louder. Not because it's easy, but because you're finally done pretending that easy is what you came for. You didn't survive storms just to decorate the shoreline. You came to swim, to dive, to rise again and again until the water remembers your name. And it will, because when you decide that you are no longer available for mediocrity, the world begins to echo that decision. When you rise without asking if you're allowed, mountains move. When you show up without waiting for applause, legacies begin. You're not waiting on a moment, you are the moment. So let your choices scream what your doubt tries to whisper over. You are not lost. You are being redefined. And this time, you won't dim your light to belong. You'll burn so bright that you finally see who you've always been becoming. You were never meant to play small in a world that needs your full presence. Shrinking yourself to fit into places that don't honor your worth only teaches your soul to suffocate. You were built to stretch, to evolve, to expand beyond every label that tried to define your ceiling. There is no growth in pretending to be less just to be accepted by those who fear their own evolution. Your light is not a disruption, it's a declaration, a statement that you will no longer edit your power to soothe someone else's comfort. The moment you choose to rise without apology is the moment you begin to heal generations of silence. You're not here to blend in. You're here to awaken everything within you that's been waiting for the day you finally said yes to your own becoming. Your voice matters, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Your choices matter, not because they're always right, but because they're yours. You cannot become who you were born to be if you keep outsourcing your authority to the world around you. Every time you hold back your truth to make others feel better about playing small, you betray the mission written inside you. You are not too much. You are exactly enough for the battles you've been entrusted with, and no one else can walk through your fire and come out carrying your lessons. That strength is yours. That story is yours. That future, the one you've glimpsed in your quietest moments of courage, is already yours. You're not chasing it, you're aligning with it. The time has come to stop asking if you're qualified to rise. You are the evidence of survival. You are the proof that getting knocked down is not the same as being defeated. Life has tried to bury you, but it didn't know you were a seed.